Okay, you ready?
Sure.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us on CodeChat. We're here in sunny Colorado. This is my colleague Bret, and we're actually at a team offsite. So, Bret, where did you come from?
San Diego.
And I'm from Seattle, so you're used to this kind of sunshine.
Yeah, in fact, I'm getting a little tired of the heat. I want it to start getting into fall so it cools down some.
And this feels like vacation to me. This is the first time we recorded a CodeChat kind of on site, and maybe you'll notice we're using my GoPro camera. So that's fun. I have no idea how the audio is going to turn out, but I guess we'll see.
We'll give it a try. I'll talk loud.
The other thing that's unique about this CodeChat is that Bret and I haven't talked about what we're going to talk about. So this is going to be completely ad hoc.
Oh, I didn't know that was an experiment. I thought it was a chat.
Oh, no, it is a chat.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be informal, but normally we do a little bit of, here's what's coming your way.
Okay. All right.
So
I'll try to stay on topic.
Now, we did bring some gadgets, though.
Yes.
And we figured, we could talk about all the gadget stuff you're doing.
All right.
So why don't you tell me about all the gadget stuff you're doing and why?
Well, and of course, part of that is the broader topic of just IoT
Okay.
or Internet of Things, which, of course, you can't anymore do a presentation without saying big data or IoT, right? So
those are the catch terms.
In fact, I was watching my Twitter feed the other day, and I apologize, I can't remember how to credit the quote, but it was basically, hardware is the new app, right? It really is. And when you start to think about what happened, starting 5 to 7 years ago, when people started thinking about really building a personal business around apps, I think we have that new opportunity to start building personal businesses around hardware, right? And so with the availability of like iOS and being able to go out and just create an app, I could do it at night by myself, and the resources and the tooling and the community and all that kind of stuff was there. Now, when you look at platforms like the Arduino, and what they're doing for sort of democratizing access to hardware, I call it's Legos.
Yeah,
I can go out and just pick stuff up and go do it. There's tons of code samples, and there's a whole industry of back-end services that are springing up that make this possible for you as just the interested developer or the interested party to start. Man, it'd be cool if I could build this. To just like you had that app idea, you can now have that device idea.
So what's new about it? Because, I graduated from college a long time ago, and I remember even after college, I had my electronics kit left over from the robots that we built and whatnot. So I was doing that a long time ago. What's different about it now?
The difference is exactly what happened around apps. Code has been around forever, right? Well, at least relative to my lifetime, right? So, but it's that all of a sudden there's momentum in the industry, and that it's not just one company that's doing it, that there's an entire community of not only consumers, but of producers, people that are building platforms and tools and back-end services and production pipelines. If you think about just the whole maker movement, the fact that I can go pick up a 3D printer for hundreds of dollars that I could put in my home, and that I could actually visualize producing some piece of hardware that I could at least build a prototype. And then you go, okay, well, great, now I got this prototype, what do I do with it? There are entire industries built around building that supply chain for you so that I can now send that 3D model out, the same one that I printed at home, but send it out for professional manufacturing.
Wow.
I can take my Arduino circuit board that I designed in Fritzing, which is a free software tool, or EagleCAD or something like that, and I can then ship that off to a PCB board manufacturer, and tomorrow get my boards delivered to me. Send it off to an electronics manufacturer all over the world who's willing to surface mount the chips onto the board for me and all that kind of stuff. I have now an individual level, a consumer level, almost level of access to those production tools. And that's really what happened with apps, is that you could go into business with an app because the marketplaces were there to support you publishing this stuff and making it available. We're not totally there yet. It's not as simple as publishing an app into a store or into a marketplace, but we're getting closer. And you start looking at online services like Shapeways, where I can 3D print my own objects or buy from a whole marketplace of objects that are available, in the technologies that are coming out of that. The mass production, the convenience of the tooling, the accessibility of the hardware, it really is sort of that next evolution.
I think one of the things, too, that's contributed to it is the fact that with these little tiny devices, we've got much richer set of sensors, and we've got wireless communication.
Yeah.
Because when I was building robots, I had some sensors, for sure, but I didn't have Bluetooth communication. I didn't have Wi-Fi communication. I didn't have, what else didn't I have? I didn't have accelerometers. Those were hard to come by.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but the processing power to deal with those
Right.
sensors.
Yeah.
I can run a much more powerful processor with much less electricity than I could have a decade ago, right?
Yeah.
Or heck, 3 years ago.
Sure.
Right, and so along with that, even on the communication standard side, we also have low power wireless communication. So you have the possibility of building sort of the common sample you hear a lot about today is, my garden monitor. The community gardens that are out there. I want to know about, the soil conditions or that kind of stuff. And to be able to actually build a sensor that not only can sense sort of how moist the soil is, but they can actually transmit that to some aggregation point where I can start to get to that online and have those devices run untended for months at a time. Is for me the game changer. If I had to go out and change the battery every week, it wouldn't happen.
And the ability to aggregate that data on the chip so that the API on the chip is something that I can consume very easily in my app. Because I remember when I was writing a robot, I had a sonic sensor that was going to determine how far away the objects were, and I had to hit that at a very low level. I had to measure the speed, I had to send a ping, and then get the response and do the measurements and do the math and figure that all out. And now when I interact with these devices, it's more a matter of saying, what's the distance? It's just one call now.
Well, and that's thank God for libraries, right? Or that kind of stuff. And it's part of what we do as software developers is build abstractions, and being that those sensors have been around long enough, and that there's communities around using them, we get to benefit from everybody else's work. Somebody decided, man, I'm sick of having to parse that data out. Let me just write a nice wrapper around that.
Do you think IoT is still at the point where developers are going to feel some pain when they're working in it because it's so new?
Oh yeah. So, well, in fact, going back to the gadgets, right? So this board, it's a clone, which is fully supported by Arduino. Arduino is open source hardware. So that's another piece of this, is just like open source software has made it possible for anybody to sort of gain access to high level professional, software product. Same thing with hardware, right? So this is open source hardware. You can go get all the files and everything that you would need to basically go produce your own Arduino. The Arduino would hope, or the team would hope, that you're going to add value to it, like add Bluetooth to the board or add some additional functionality that maybe they hadn't thought about to make it better. But this is just an Arduino clone. And if you look at, I've got these, these headers, these black pins that are up here, and so now I can go out and buy shields like this, and this happens to be a Wi-Fi shield from Adafruit, but those pins are just perfectly sized, so I can now take that and plug it into my Arduino, and now all of a sudden I have a Wi-Fi enabled Arduino, right?
Okay.
So from a pain point perspective, there's not a lot of pain in that, but now all of a sudden if you look at that and you say, okay, well, let's go look at the Galileo. And the Galileo is a board from Intel, and this is one that we actually now support actually running Windows on, and that's pretty cool. In fact, this one I actually have a Wi-Fi PCIe Express adapter on the back.
Interesting.
But pain points right now, the Windows preview release that's out is a preview release, right? We're revving that to be released in the future, where we'll have more support for hardware. But for example, right now, that board isn't supported. I can't enable, that Wi-Fi adapter, and so you do find yourself digging through forums,
running into these things,
finding, where am I going to find the library that works with that on this platform or something like that, right?
Well, and there's even pain in the fact that there are all these devices. I mean, you've got a whole slew of them right here, and I was at a conference recently. There are a ton more, and a person might wonder, which device do I start with?
Well, and that's actually a good question. But if you look at actually every device that I have here, so I have I had the regular Arduino Uno. I've got my Galileo, which is an Arduino certified board. I also have the Arduino Yun, which is actually same thing with the Galileo. These are actually 32-bit processors that have Linux OS flashed onto them out of the factory. Wi-Fi, Ethernet, all that kind of stuff embedded in it. You get down to this guy. This is the Arduino, and it actually, again, uses all of these 4 boards here can use the wiring API. So if I learn how to write for the Arduino Uno, which I would say is sort of the entry point for getting into this stuff, I can take those exact same, we call them sketches, but programs, and even if not the exact same sketches, the exact same APIs and the same skill set, and write for this board, or for this board, or for this board, right? And the cool thing about sort of the Arduino family is that production line, right? These guys, at least pure Arduinos, built off an Atmel chip, you can go buy just the chip and build your own circuit around that, right? So while the board may have cost me $29, I'm not going to build a product around the board.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to build a product around the Atmel chip, right?
Yeah.
So now I can go buy an Atmel chip for a couple of bucks, and now I can start to see, yes, I could actually build a product where that chip and that software still works, but I'm not spending $30 for my core processing functionality.
This is a little bit of a lateral question, but can you tell me how static sensitive these boards are?
Well, I'm apparently not too worried about it, right?
I know.
I'll put it this way. I have yet to fry one. So I was actually doing a presentation for a user group in San Diego a couple weeks back, and I have a cool little board or car that I built, and I've got a Arduino on it with a motor shield and a bunch of extra voltage coming. Oh, I shouldn't say a bunch. It's four AA batteries, right?
Yeah.
But there was a screw on the robot chassis that I had, and somehow I didn't have the Arduino tightened down, and it moved over, and one of the pins on the bottom shorted out on the screw, and smoke and all that kind of stuff. So the cool thing about this is that you still get the pleasure of blowing stuff up, right?
Yeah, that's great.
You can still catch stuff on fire. You do still have to be careful about it, but it is more resilient than you might expect it to be.
Yeah.
I can have an Arduino plugged in, and I'll plug an LED right into the pins without pulling the power on it.
That's one of my big regrets the last few years of my life, writing mostly software, is I've had so few opportunities to smell that very unique circuit smoke.
It is one of those, well, and for me it was like, what board did I just blow? Was it the motor driver, or was it the Arduino? And I have yet to pull it apart. I haven't had time yet to blow it apart, right?
What else do you have here?
All right, well, so if you look at, I talked about the Uno, that's the Atmel chip. That's an 8-bit processor, right? So when you think about, what kind of processing power, talking about your robot and you stick a camera on there, what if I wanted to start to do facial recognition on the board or something like that? Could this chip handle that, 8-bit chip, probably not, also limited amounts of RAM. So as you start stepping up, like I said, this Yun, same footprint. It's basically, it's the exact same size board.
Yeah.
But this is a 32-bit processor, and it's running a Linux OS.
Wow.
I've got Wi-Fi, I've got Ethernet, and all that kind of stuff. And so I start to get a different story in terms of what can I do with that board. One of the more popular boards for doing sort of full PC type functionality, this is the Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
Right, and of course, whenever you see a Pi, somebody's got to have it a plastic enclosure. I don't know why we don't do plastic enclosures for all the other ones, but okay. But the Pi, so I've got an SD card in there that's got a Linux distro on it.
Yeah.
I've got a USB Wi-Fi dongle just plugged into a regular good old USB port.
Yeah.
You've got various video out. I got HDMI out. I've got RCA video output there. It's a PC. I can hook this up to a keyboard and go for it, sort of thing. And so that's when what you want to do is start thinking about the project and what kind of processing power you're going to need for that. And again, the benefit of the Arduino, something like the Uno, isn't so much, these are actually pretty close in price. This guy's about $30. You can usually pick up a Pi somewhere between $35 and $45, depending on where you buy it, sort of thing. But it's, what's my production pipeline with this? Where am I going with this, right? If I want to build a cheap device that I actually want to go into manufacturing with or something like that, and I don't need all that processing power, this is probably a better board to use, because I can go buy various versions of that Atmel chip and build it into a product, right?
Yeah.
The Pi, this is a computer, right? I'm basically going to be shipping this computer, or I'm buying some other board that's going to have that similar, I/O type functionality that I can run my Linux distro on and sort of port my code over to, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of depends on what's the project. Are you playing around? How much processing power do you need? And what other kind of devices do you need, right? This guy, I've got HDMI, I got USB, I got all this other kind of stuff. Same thing with the Galileo, right? I got USB host. I could go stick a USB drive in here and start storing files onto it, or SD cards, PCIe express cards, and that kind of stuff. So it kind of depends on the project it is as to what you might pick. The other thing that I brought out here, this is a cool little car that I got. This is off, originally I got this from a site called SparkFun, which is just an amazing site for going and buying these Lego pieces, right? You say, man, I need an accelerometer. I want to cell phone enable my Arduino, right? SparkFun, Adafruit, Amazon. Amazon's got a ton of this stuff as well, but SparkFun, Adafruit, Inventive, Innovative, they're sort of part of the industry that's driving a lot of the momentum around this whole IoT stuff.
Okay.
But this is a board I bought off of Spark Fund. They have unfortunately stopped selling it, but there's other
Did it come
vendors
with
that
the
do
car?
it. Complete. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
sorry. $29. Right?
Oh, wow.
The whole deal, right?
Wow.
And it shipped with this board, and I don't know if you can see it from there, but that little chip there in the middle, that's an Atmel chip. It's basically very similar. I want my teensy. That's why they call them teensy. Because they can
easy to
disappear
lose.
like that, right?
That's like those micro SD cards. I swear I'm going to lose my micro SD card.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's basically the same Atmel chip that you would get on an Uno.
Yeah.
And this guy actually has Bluetooth built in,
Hmm.
and it has a Bluetooth command set that's flashed into the firmware, so it understands when you send certain Bluetooth commands to it, it knows to go forward or backward or left or right or whatever, right? So the cool thing about that, and this tying it back into apps, is that now all of a sudden I could, as an app developer, you say, well, I can go buy this piece of hardware, but it's just Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
And my phone talks Bluetooth.
Yeah.
So I can build an app around that. In fact, so when we pull my phone out, it probably won't show well here. This actually, the source code for this is up in GitHub.
Okay.
We'll share a link.
Okay, yeah.
But so I have a...
We can share your screen too,
Yeah.
so go ahead.
So I have an app here on my phone.
iDrive, all right.
iDrive, that I wrote, right? And I did this all in XAML, sorry.
Okay, it'll
But I
work.
basically have, a little model of the car. And as in fact, what the heck, I'll turn it on. So I turn my car on. I tell it I want to pair up, so it shows me the cars that are available. And I'll tell it to connect up. And soon it all works.
There we go. Oh, it's using
right.
an accelerometer.
Yeah, and so I'm just using the accelerometer. So actually the way I wrote my code is I built a provider model. And so far I've only written an accelerometer provider, but I thought it'd be cool to have a signal R provider.
Yeah, really.
And have like a model of the car on a web page.
Yeah, there you
push
go.
Which way you want it to go or something like that. And all I'm doing from the phone is pairing up to a Bluetooth device and sending it commands, right? And so when you look at that, you say, well, okay, that's basically an Arduino with Bluetooth. Well, Arduino, very, very much like this Wi-Fi shield. I could get a Bluetooth shield.
Yeah.
Plug it in, and now all of a sudden I have a platform that I could start to devise not only the hardware piece but the app piece of that.
Yeah, right.
Right? You say, I want my home beer robot or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can build it and then sit there and have it drive me beer, right?
Which is
probably,
perfect.
Which maybe I shouldn't use the accelerometer because sooner or later it's going to turn to the right all the time or something like that, right? But I mean,
And then
for me,
these
that's
boards
awesome.
contain various levels of abstraction. You keep talking about the Linux distros, but then like this has the Bluetooth command set built right in.
Right.
And I know that I've had experience with some boards that are just ready for me to write JavaScript. I don't ever have to. Yeah, like the Tesla. The Tesla has Wi-Fi built right in, and it's got a module for Bluetooth LE, and so I could do a similar kind of thing, and I can do the whole thing in JavaScript, which is my
that's
language of
cool.
choice.
Yeah, and we were at TechCrunch Disrupt last week, and we were using the Spark IO.
Ah,
Now the Spark IO
that's also JavaScript, right?
well, it's an Arduino compatible board, so you're actually
Okay. using
using the wiring API, just like you would, but you actually write it in their cloud-based editor. Your Spark IO is to be functional needs to be on Wi-Fi, and you actually write your code. It compiles and then ships through the cloud down to the board.
Interesting.
But your board is now internet addressable, so
Yeah.
I can effectively publish methods into the cloud that are REST endpoints. That I can hit that REST endpoint and it targets a method on the board.
Yeah.
Right. So we use that in our Disrupt project where we had a back-end Node.js system running in Azure that was aggregating social feeds. In this case, it was just Twitter hashtags, but it could have been any social feed. Aggregating them and doing two things. One, it was sending to one Spark IO board how we were doing relative to our goal. So let's say we wanted to hit 20 tweets against some hashtag. It could tell me you're at 2, 4, 5, 7. And so I had an LED bar that was just basically showing me that continuous value. The closer you got, the higher the LEDs went.
Yeah.
The flip side of that was threshold, right? So one, we were publishing a value to the board, which was just showing the value. The other one was publishing a method to the board. And so we had another device, was a compressed air rocket launcher, which is, you look at Make Magazine, it's PVC and the sprinkler valve. It's cool stuff. But the sprinkler valve is nothing but a solenoid that all I have to do is send a voltage across it, and it'll open the valve, right?
Okay.
So you pump the compressed air thing up with air, and we'd wire the sprinkler valve up to the Spark IO. And it was through a relay, but basically to the Spark IO. And so when the threshold of tweets we wanted got crossed, the Node.js system in Azure was able to send a message to the Spark IO. that said, open that solenoid, and the rocket shoots. Right.
Okay, so now we're starting to talk about cloud connectivity. So tell me about, like, the story, I think, gets really interesting when these things start talking to the cloud. What power does that open up for us, and what services are available for us?
And so, well, first of all, if you look at something like this, this is actually an example of an Arduino product.
Yeah.
Right. I went out and I designed the car, but I didn't ship the whole Arduino in it.
Yeah.
Right. And so we built a product around that. But when you start to look at that, you say, okay, well, now I'm not the consumer. I'm not the person buying this car, but I'm the person making that car.
Yeah.
And I want to start to collect metrics around this. You know, how fast are people driving our cars? How often do they turn left?
Yeah.
How quickly do they run out of the batteries? Are there cars that are defective where we could contact the customer and say, you know what, it looks like you have a car that's having a problem. What can we do to help? Or something like that. And so when you start to think about having a device
or the cars talking with each other or sharing stories.
Yeah. I take one car, control it, and the other one drives in parallel with it or something. Yeah. So all of a sudden, these devices become data sources. And so everything that you could imagine in terms of what this car does, the car could also tell me about that. And so that's very empowering, but it's also somewhat overwhelming of, what do I do with that data?
It's like it's like a fire hose of data going up.
How do I get the data? What do I do with the data? How do I make decisions on that data and act on it and all that kind of stuff? And so again, Would you
call that data big?
Yes, this happens to be a big data problem. So there's a whole industry of businesses that realize this problem and are springing up, right? So there's and I apologize, I've never known how to say this, but Patube or Patube, but they've basically been bought by Xively, and that's much easier to say, so I like that, Xively. SparkFun has their own data service now that they've just released, built on an open source product they developed called Fant, like elephant, logging data never forgets. But anyhow, so there's a number of other services. Of course, all of the big vendors, including Microsoft, see this as a business opportunity. And if you think of, and again, here's where being a Microsoftie here, the Azure platform comes in, that I can now start to use all of those Azure platforms, VMs, platform as a service, table storage, especially if you start looking over on the service bus side, Event Hub, and just being able to ingest large amounts of messages, put them into a pipeline that I can then process and do something with and store and report on and do all that good stuff. I mean, the cloud is the perfect answer that is also one of those major enablers of what's making IoT possible today and not back when you were playing with your robot. Right?
Yeah, right.
And so with Azure, we have a bunch of different services, but we have a formal offering that is in limited preview right now. It's the Intelligent System Service, which is basically it's tying all those pieces that you would want together. It's not just how do I get the data in, but it's how do I act on that data? How do I set thresholds and fire alerts? How do I set up rules that deal with that data when events happen? How do I monitor it? How do I report on it? How do I secure it? That's another big piece of how do I know that the devices that are reporting into my system are my devices, right? And that I'm not having some denial of service attack because people are sending in fake data into my back end or something like that. So it's really cool because I think it's a new way to get into an industry where you can play at any level, right? You can say, you know what, I like that smell of burning electronics. I can be the hardware guy. Or you're like, oh, that was I want to write the app that drives the car, right? And so you can be the app dev. Or you can say, oh man, that back-end stuff and thinking about the big data problem and how do I make decisions on, and how do I manage ingestion of large amounts of data and stuff. You can be that data scientist, or you can be the IoT. Yeah, it's a whole new world of opportunity, really, for anybody.
Two comments I have on that. First of all, one of the reasons why I like the data story is because it opens up new monetization opportunities. Like, for instance, if I'm going to create these cars and give them to everybody, I'm going to have to try to extract the value from that end consumer. I'm going to have to get him to pay me $79 for the car, right? But if all of a sudden he
29.
is... 29. I'm going to have to make a little bit of profit.
You're going to value add.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to value add. But if I'm having to do this in order to get some profit for all that I put into the production of this, well, maybe as an alternative, the end user doesn't mind his data going to the cloud. Just like if you get a Fitbit, all that data is going to Fitbit, right? And that's fine. It's just my movements. And so if I don't mind this data going to the cloud, and then the company can extract some monetary value from that, then all of a sudden they don't have to charge the end user nearly as much.
Well, yeah, and that's I think as a consumer something that we've gotten used to. My data is part of the contract of me buying the app.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
If I weren't comfortable with it, when I buy the app, it says it's going to use this, it's going to do that, and I agree to that at the time that I purchased the app.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to make that same agreement with the product when you choose to buy the product and turn it on. Right?
Yep. Right.
Actually, for me, I think the cool thing about IoT from a consumer perspective is you have that power to turn it off.
Yeah, that's true.
If you decide, what the heck, I'm not comfortable with this anymore, I can go turn that device off and just stop using it.
Yeah.
But it's the nature of the beast. That it is a reality of the IoT world. The things that you use are going to be telling somebody else about the way that you're using them, and not necessarily in a personal way.
Yeah, right.
I might
Could
get
be completely anonymous.
Right. I might get data back that just says this car was going 75 miles an hour, but not that Jeremy's car was going 75 miles an hour on this freeway a mile ahead of a cop, and oh, by the way, officer, you should go get this guy, or something like that. So it's part of how you're going to pick and choose the vendors that you choose to be a patron of.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, where you're gonna give your trust.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to say is I remember being in the computing world before networking was really introduced. Computers weren't really hooked up to each other, and the way I saw it was that computers were kind of a glorified calculator. They did really cool things as they sat there on my desk. They made certain portions of my life shorter or easier or whatever, but it was still just a glorified calculator until they started talking to each other over networks of various kinds. And we didn't have internet. We had local networks, we had bulletin board systems, whatever, but we started talking to each other. These the scenarios were exponentially, they were opened up.
Yeah. Well, and so I've been talking about the IoT sort of space for about a year now. I've been a nerd my entire life, and
you're not going to get over that.
I was a double E in college, so I'm not coming from zero, but formally as IoT, I've been talking about it for about a year. And one of the first examples I used of it was the smart stapler, right? I mean, how would you think about a smart stapler, right? But if you think about it, you say, if I had a stapler maybe that went into the smart office supply cabinet, that when I put the stapler back, it could tell me if it was low on staples, right? And if you knew there was only one stapler in the cabinet because everybody else has taken them, and that stapler had staples in it, you knew with confidence that you could walk to the cabinet, pull a staple out, and you could staple your paper together. And that stapler has value at that point because you can use it. If, however, you just walk to the regular old supply cabinet and there's either A, no staple or staplers, or B, the one that's there is empty and there's no other staples there, that stapler might as well not have been there. You got zero value.
Negative value because you had to walk there and back.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so it makes those, just objects that we take for granted all of a sudden so much more valuable because they can tell us things about themselves that we would never have expected, right? And that goes back to that computer sitting there by itself was valuable, but it became so much more valuable when it could tell me or other people about the things that it was doing.
And it can take some of the ceremony out of it because it might just be that your device, your stapler or whatever, needs to get its information from somewhere else. Maybe the manufacturer, maybe the producer, maybe the supply closet, or that they're the ones that know the answer to the question, not me. And yet with so many of our devices, with the VCR, I've got to go program it with the information and I don't know. So I've got to go chase it. I've got to look it up.
Yep. Well, and you think about taking that stapler and tying it in with my purchasing system, and it goes, okay, well, on average, all staplers are at 30%. We found that's the reorder threshold. Yeah. And that's something I could tune, right? Yeah. 30% is too low. Order at 50% or something like that. And so now all of a sudden I could start having, staples just show up at my desk and I go, oh, I guess we're running out.
Okay, so we're running out of time, but one question that I like to ask is, what if there's a developer watching CodeChat right now and he's a little bit overwhelmed with all the options? What's some advice that you have for how he can break into this IoT scene?
Okay, so the non-Microsoft answer in me is that if you wanted to play around with the Arduino and not spend a dime, Autodesk has a really cool website, 123dcircuit.io. I'll verify the link and get it to you.
Yeah, it'll be on the bottom of the screen.
But it's basically, there's an open source project called Fritzing, which is a German company. It's a really cool tool. You can download it, you can diagram and breadboard, and it'll help you build your schematics and PCB boards and all that kind of stuff. And that's really neat, and I think overall it's more functional. But the cool thing about the Autodesk product is it's web-based. I don't have to download anything. And they have an online Arduino simulator. So you can actually wire your circuits up and play with some sketches and actually run them in their online simulator. And you go, okay, I get it.
I get it, yeah. Now I've got the concept.
It's worth
now I can figure out whether I want to buy it, yeah.
Yeah, so let me go spend the $30 and get a real one so I can touch it and put a real motor on it and make something spin or something like that, right? And so for me, that would be a real easy, just litmus test. If you went to 123D circuits and you go, I didn't enjoy that at all, maybe this isn't where you want to be, right? But if you look at it, oh, that was cool. Now I want the real thing. Then you can step up. I think from a community perspective, the Arduino is a fantastic place to start, because everybody else that you talk about relative to IoT, at least in a large scale, that's going to be a baseline. Right? Do you get that Arduino concept? It's not necessarily how you're going to build every product or where you will go from there, but there's an amazing community around it, and it's a great place to have people, like-minded people that you can talk to and learn from. And from there, you'll start to decide, you know what, do I like the Pi idea better of having a full computer? Do I like the Galileo story where I can actually go load Windows on it? If you're a .NET dev and you want to get in, you want a richer development environment than the Arduino IDE, and you want to be able to start, actually thinking about a more professional development tool chain, and moving that way. I mean, there really are a lot of options, but for me, at least right now, they're all fun. Although not free. So.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people will be fine with spending just a little bit of money to break into it. It's just, still nice to have a starting point. You've got some good resources online. You talk about the Galileo on your blog. You've got a YouTube channel, right? So I can put some links to that. Anything else you want to throw people's way?
Well, and of course, Intel and Microsoft both have a number of resources up there, and the good old Arduino site. There's a ton of great resources up there just on Arduino.cc. And start looking at it, play around with those things, and find something that makes interest that interests you. And go build a circuit. And have fun with it. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us on CodeChat. I hope you visit us next time. Take care.
Hope the audio worked.
Yeah, me too. I know. Well, there was so much wind. Oh, now my battery is critically low. Should have kept going.